Hey there, students. I just wanted to discuss with you your next task for PPAT, for your PPAT, which is task number 4. We're at the end of the road with your PPAT, and I'm hoping many of you are feeling great, confident in the things that you're hearing as I am recording these short tutorials for you. I'm hoping that, because I haven't heard from many of you, so I'm really hoping that something that I'm saying here, if you're listening, is or has been very helpful for you as you go through each portion of this, of the PPAT, to help to inform your what you're creating each time to be submitted. So I wanted to review with you the weeks 3-1 through 328. And module 4 is due task 4 is due March 31st. So that's important for you to know. I did place that on the announcements. PPAT task number 4 is due March 31st. Please do not let things get ahead of you. Make sure that you at least try to turn it in 3 days or 2 days prior to the date. Asking for an extension can be costly, and you just don't want to have to do that. If you've had to, great. It's water under the bridge, and you're moving forward. This is part 4, task 4, so it really needs to be the best. This is where you need to go out with a bang. Okay, so let's just review. Module 4 for the course is due Sunday, March 28th. We're going over objectives 1 and 3. You're going to be implementing and analyzing instruction to promote student learning. You're also going to examine relevant research and resources, work on your PPAT task 4. You're going to have your journal, your discussion, and the journal and discussion post due by Sunday at midnight. So let's go over some of these essential questions to consider, and there are several. Okay. So the first, how did you establish a baseline of student knowledge and skills to be able to demonstrate student growth? So what's your baseline? What assessment tool? What have you used in order to obtain a baseline of students' ability that is going to help to inform your instruction and get your students to the next level, right? Because there has to be growth from baseline between the start of the year and the end of the year. That's what your administration is looking for. That's what the school district is looking for. And that's what these students deserve. And that's what these parents are looking for. So you have to know that you have a decent baseline for students, and you have to know and have a plan in order to get these students over that baseline, okay, to seeing some type of growth, okay? So consider your lowest student and their baseline. You have to have a plan of growth for that student so that you are aware of what assignments are going to affect these students in specific ways to get them to that next point. And along the way, when you're doing when you have checkpoints, you want to make sure you do have those checkpoints, those mini assessments along the way that help to see are they moving past that baseline? What specifically is helping them to improve? What specifically is not getting them to where they need to go, so that you can tweak your lessons moving forward. Okay. How did students' prior knowledge and skills influence your instructional planning? That's a great question. And prior knowledge is extremely important. Okay. You want to consider that, think about it this way. You have students who are from up north, and maybe you teach in a very southern, very hot climate, right? Your students are reading something about surfing. The students who are from up north, who've been around snow, it's very snowy, very cold, and they're reading something about, about surfboarding. Their prior knowledge for that topic is not going to provide them with the background they need to really connect with the material. So you want to think about that. You want to think about your planning and how you're going to allow that student, that specific student who's missing that prior knowledge, the same opportunity that the student that for the student that does have that prior knowledge. You want to provide equality or equity in the learning opportunity, and that's what prior knowledge does. Okay, it does, it levels the playing field, and it allows students to connect, to have a deeper connection. All right, next one. Let's see. How and why did you use specific content language in your instruction to advance student understanding? So if some of you are using the standards, the language of the standard to teach your students, why? Why are you allowing students to see standards on a daily basis and understand what a standard is? And it doesn't necessarily have to be that you're allowing them to see the standard, but I think that that's content language enough as an example. So as the example, if you are using standards and you are allowing students to know it, to understand it, so that they can be aware of it, you want to be able to speak to that. Why are you using that content language in your instruction, and how is it advancing student understanding? Well, if I use standard or specific standards in everyday teaching, students can understand that that is the goal. Them being able to understand the standard and surpass the goals for that standard is where I want them to be. So it's important that they see it and understand what standards are, so that they're not just in there learning and not understanding why they're learning, or why you're doing the things you're doing in order to teach them. Okay, next. How and why did you use critical thinking in your planning to advance student learning? Well, critical thinking is important. Reflecting, critical thinking, all of those things should be a part of any subject that you're teaching, whether it is gym or PE. I'm sorry, I'm old. So back in the day, we used to call it gym. Or whether it is playing an instrument, critical thinking is important. It allows students to analyze information on a deeper level, so that when they come in contact with information or learning that is above their ability level, that they're able to attempt it, or at least make an attempt at understanding it. So critical thinking and the ability to is very important, and you need to schedule in those opportunities for students so that they can master the art of critical thinking. Okay. How and why did you use questioning skills? Questioning skills, critical thinking, analysis, all the same thing. How and why did you use questioning skills to advance student learning? It's the same thing. It's analysis, questioning what they're learning. So how did you do it, and why did you do it? You have to be specific. There has to be, it has to look as though you had a plan for it, not just that you happened upon this opportunity for students, so now you're great. You have to show that you are technically skilled in providing these opportunities to students for a purpose. Because if you don't have a purpose, your students don't have a purpose. Their learning does not have a purpose. And then what are we doing? And then what are your kids doing? So you have to look like you really thought about this and there's a plan. Okay. How and why did you integrate literacy skills in your instruction to advance student learning? Because you want to show that you can teach across the curriculum. You want to show that you are there not only to be the PE teacher, but you're there to assist other teachers in their attempt to get students to pass the assessment, the statewide assessment. You want to show that you are able to assist your colleagues in teaching students that the skills that they're learning in English are important, because, or in language arts, are important because they're going to use those same skills and strategies in PE, in art. So there's connectiveness to it. And we're not just learning what we're learning in language arts because we need it, but because we need it there, but we're learning it so that we can have it and use it in everything we do. So we have to show how things are connected. And that's what you need to do as well. You need to show that connecting thread. Okay. Let's see. How do you monitor student learning during the course of the lesson? So this is important. Are you doing is there formative assessment? Is there summative assessment? What type of monitoring are you doing? Are you taking anecdotal notes? Are you charting? What exactly are you doing to monitor your student learning? So here I want to branch off and I just want to show you something that I used to use. Okay, so this is my student progress tracking chart, okay? And this is where my students get to be reflective and they get to take a look at how they feel they're doing with specific standards that they're working on, that they are aware of. And they're aware of the learning goal, they're aware of it as a standard, they're aware of the different tiers to their learning, the different levels to their learning, and they're aware of when they reach them, why they've reached them, and how they've reached them. So up here it shows the learning goal or the standard, right? And then down here, it shows that my students understand that they have to produce where they feel they are at the beginning of their learning, right? So my score at the beginning of learning. So there's level 4, 3, 2, and 1, okay? And if they were not okay with just having a 4, 3, 2, 1, I've sort of provided them number grades that would, correlate to the leveling here, okay? As far as 0 to 25 is level 1, 25 to 50 is a level 2, 50% to 75% means that they have that level of understanding at a level 3, and 80 to 100% is a level 4, which is surpassing where they need to be, okay? And then their goal is to be at a score of 3 to 4 by, and you'd put this in for the end of the quarter, or maybe you would have them put it in for whenever you're finished teaching that lesson for that specific standard. Here in Florida, when we're working on a standard and when we're teaching intensive reading, our standards run for the duration of an entire quarter because it's intensive, right? And that's the RTI process for us. So here, specific strategies I'm going to use to improve my understanding of finding the central idea in a text are, okay, so the strategies that I've given to my students, have them list them so that they know what they can use as learning strategies to help them understand or find or locate the central idea of any text. So at any time, my students have at least 2 to 4 learning strategies that they are going to use, whichever ones they like the most. I don't care which one it is, but they have to show me that they're using a strategy, because that's how we practice and that's how we deepen our connection to the learning. And that's how it moves from a strategy to a skill. So the 3A's strategy is one, annotating is another, finding the major supporting details, and then using the main idea tabletop. All of these strategies, 2 of these strategies, I don't care. I just need to know that the students know them, and then I need to see them utilizing it. So then down here, these are the list of assignments that we would have worked on for the quarter. Here is these USA 2 and USA 3. Those are our mini assessments within the quarter that shows me as a teacher how students are doing with this standard, with this learning goal, okay? Several questions, maybe anywhere between 15 to 25 questions that test the student's knowledge and understanding of central idea, okay? So I would have gotten a baseline at the start of the quarter. And so here we're using the diagnostic score, which is the baseline, and then we're moving past that. And throughout, I'm able to monitor how the students are working. Over here, students will be able to tell me the strategies they've used for specific assignments and specific assessments. I want them to be specific. And then here they will mark off, the grades that they're getting on each, so that they can see over time how they're doing grade-wise, because it lets them know where they are. At any given time, my students need to know that 75% or better is the goal, because retaining 75% of that information is where you need to be in order to pass that state standardized test. test, and I'm sorry that I have to say that so much, but that is the goal for these students, because that amount of information retained is going to help them with the rigor of the next school year of what they're going to be asked to do. So down here, they have the full learning goal, and on the chart, it shows them specifically what each level means. So 4 shows that they can demonstrate it and they can teach other students. 3 is right on par. 2, they can do some of the things in the learning goal. And 1, teacher, I need help. Then at the bottom, they're asked to reflect again before they turn this sheet in. Write a short paragraph that describes your success with this learning goal. And in here, normally I see students tell me how they feel, what they're missing, and based upon this, it allows me to monitor and see whether I need to reteach or whether I need to pull this certain student and other students who feel the same way and place them in a small group and work with them a little bit more in depth on the specific strategies or the learning goal itself. Okay, so that's a great way to monitor and to see what's going on with your students. Okay. If you need me to send that to you, I can send that to you. That's not a problem either. Let's see. How did you provide feedback to individuals and to the whole group to advance student learning? You can provide feedback in any way. It can be written, it can be verbalized, it can be sent through Google Classroom, whatever platform you're using. Just have a specific way that you just have a specific plan for providing feedback that seems consistent, and be able to explain and detail why you use that and how it was helpful, and maybe some of the response that you got from students in how you used and in how you provided feedback. A while back, I used to give grows and glows. So that was the way in which I gave feedback. Students knew that the grows, that portion of it was a way for them was my feedback that showed them what they need to work on, and the glows is what they were doing well, so that they can get both at once. Okay, a grow and a glow. Let's see. How did you use classroom management strategies to promote a positive learning environment or culture? Okay, so classroom management. Did you use the balanced rotational model that allowed each student to be in a specific rotation and center, so that you had the class organized, they were able to have their downtime away from you, time with you, independent time? What classroom management strategies are you using to promote a positive learning environment or culture? Okay. How did you establish a baseline, monitor learning, and show progress for your focus students? Okay, so I think there again, that tracking chart would definitely work. If you didn't want to use the tracking chart for all students, using that tracking chart for one student or 2 focus students would be an absolute terrific way to show your monitoring. Okay, how did you establish baseline, monitor? How did you establish baseline, monitor learning, and show progress for your whole class group? You can also, again, use that tracking chart. Okay, the tracking chart is excellent because it shows the learning goal in what they need to accomplish, and it shows them reflecting on their learning, and that's how you're monitoring. You can ask students to come up and have a conference with them about their tracking chart, about what's on their tracking chart. For me, what I used to do is all my students kept their tracking chart. All my students had to have a binder, and at the front cover had to be that plastic piece. So all my students had to put their tracking chart in the front cover of their binder. So when I took small groups, I would be able to just, visibly see their tracking chart. So I could see whether they were tracking, what they were tracking. If I wanted to just reach over and, pick up their binder and take a look and see, I always knew where they were. So that was, a part of my classroom management and a part of me being able to always see where they were. Also, if I had observations and an administrator came in, or somebody from the district came in, and they all saw my students with their binders with that tracking chart right in the front, and students, working on their tracking chart and seeing it being used, it really spoke volumes, because it shows students are really immersed in what it is they're learning, to the point where they're reflecting on it, and they're learning about their learning, which is big. Okay, let's see. What does the data say about your students reaching the learning goals? So your tracking chart, again, would be a great way. So if they're able to look, you're able to see their baseline and then look at their tracking charts so quickly, just to see what's happening between the baseline and how they're doing in class through the tracking chart. It's just really an easy, quick way to say, hey, well, this was your baseline. You were here at 40%. Now look, you're at 60% each time on each assignment that has to do with this learning goal. So there's growth there, and then here's where we need to be, okay? You can also do, I should have put up the data charts because I used to have data conferences with my students, and they used to have to fill in each test that they took. So we did SRI testing through Scholastic. So they'd have their baseline, which was their FSA score from the year previous. Then they would have their 4 SRI tests that we would take 4 times throughout the year. And then they'd have their diagnostic mid-year, and then they'd have the USAs and FSQs, which are mini assessments throughout for different standards. So that chart that had all of their specific tests that shows their growth, we would conference about that as soon as they took another assessment, so that they could see where they were and where they were able to get to on the next assessment, and how close they were to doing so much better on the next assessment or the next assignment. So either a data chart or this tracking chart is a great tool, but you definitely have to conference with students to make about this chart and about the information and data on the chart to make it real for them. I think it's really important when students know why they're doing something and know what that test is specifically for. It just makes it more meaningful to them, and then they're more involved. What was successful and what needs revision in your teaching of the lesson to the whole group and the focus group? So this is where you really get to reflect on what you did well, what you planned well, and what you need to truly take a second look at. And when you're writing toward this part, I want you to be detailed. I want you to really think about how your lesson affects every student in your class in their ability to reproduce what it is they need to reproduce to be successful with the specific standard. You have to be intentional about your reasoning and your rationale. You have to display some serious knowledge of your setup, your planning, your blueprint has to be clear in order to show how it's going to affect students and their ability to learn. I can't say any more clearer than that. Okay, so we're at the end. If you have any questions about anything that I spoke about this evening, I want you to call me. And also, I want you to call me, I want you to text me, I want you to email me, whatever you need to do. I know you guys are in the thick of it, and just know you're almost done. You just really have to go out with a bang. I really want you to show all that you know, what you've learned, and those things that have become an aha for you, like, oh, if I do that, this will happen with my students. Those are the types of things that we really need to see that you've learned in this whole process, so that you can affect change with your students. Okay, as I said before, if you need me, I'm always accessible. Next week, I'm hoping to have a Zoom meet with everybody. I'll schedule it again. I know nobody came before because the hours were a little crazy for you all. So what I'll do is I'll schedule it for next week. I'll put the link up there, and I'm hoping that everyone comes through so we can have just a roundtable talk about the task number 4, and where you're going with everything. I'd love to be there to answer any questions you have, just to make things clear if what I'm saying doesn't seem so clear, or to give you visuals. I can fully pull up things that I have, that I've saved, and you guys can take a look and see if you want anything, and I can just send those over to you. So let me know. All right, speak with you soon. Have a great week.